The loss of the recently renamed Princess Anne in the Harrow and Willesden crash not only brought a unique locomotive to an abrupt end, it meant that there was now a sizable divot in the mainline roster. While the loss was felt, it also gave British Railways mechanical and electrical executive Robert Riddles a chance to finally put his case forward for a new type of engine. Born in 1892, Robert had been around steam locomotion since before he could walk. He was a mechanically gifted student, passing his apprenticeship at Crewe within 4 years of starting. But his path changed in the First World War after he was sent back to England following a serious injury. Riddles returned to Crewe by 1920, but instead of going back into engineering, he worked in the bricks and mortar department. To some, this might seem disregarding his talents a bit, but he was put in charge for the first time and he showed great promise managing that department. After a brief spell of training from Horwich to understand the small production progress department, he applied those skills when he came back to Crewe. When Crewe was assigned to the LMS on the amalgamation of the Big Four, Riddles then went to Derby to organise things there under Chief Mechanical Engineer Henry Ivett. In 1926, a 9-day general strike hit the nation, but rather than just down tools, Robert stepped up by driving. He was one of the few mechanical engineers with this unique skill, and had a unique perspective from the driver's and the fireman's point of view. Having this insight was invaluable and would have given him the upper hand being considered for future offers. In 1933, William Stanier was in need of an assistant, and Riddles fit the bill nicely. But he had to put his railway career on hold for the war effort and began to apply for Chief Mechanical Engineer once the war was reaching its end. In the end, it was British Railways that gave him his big break, appointing him member of the Railway Executive for Mechanical and Electrical Engineering, with the role of overseeing the new standard classes. Following his success with the Britannia BR Class 7, Riddles wanted to make improvements with a brand new class, the Class 8. However, he was vetoed by the board due to this new Class 7s and the existing steam locomotives taking up all the main roles. That was until the loss of the Princess Anne. Even though it was only one locomotive, its loss was felt right across the network. Riddles seized his chance and begged the board for a chance to build an engine. Seeing no existing engine was going to fill the slot, and that the only option was to build another Class 7 anyway, the board gave Riddles the green light, but they said only the prototype. I can only imagine how excited Riddles was when he got the news and how he ran to the plans. The only stipulation was that the new engine had to be as powerful and must achieve the 8P classification. He thought about just enlarging the twin cylinders, but this was impractical, as this would just exceed the British loading gauge. So he turned to a triple cylinder design, just like the Gresley Pacifics. But while the power was there, his driver experience and driver feedback compelled him to find another answer, as the inner cylinder was awkward to access and oil. The solution came from Italian engineer Arturo Caprotti. He used automotive engines as inspiration and applied its benefits to locomotives. His valve gear had been used on British locomotives before, mainly on the LMS, so it was almost certain that Robert had come across them. But the change in the valve gear wasn't the only change. Changes to the exhaust and boiler allowed for more precise drafting. The locomotive was becoming the perfect engine, a free-steaming but powerful machine. But in reality, when it came down to construction, a mistake was made with the chimney, which caused the engine to never achieve its potential in service. The chimney and the blast pipe was much too small for the pressure the engine created, and this caused a poor draft. The engine was the only engine of its class, and given the 1955 modernisation plans, it was decided to not move ahead with the plan to create any more. In the end, the engine only had 8 years of service. It was not popular to fire, and its drafting issues persisted. By 1962 it was withdrawn, and it was fated to be scrapped. 11 years later, mainline steam was a memory, save for one or two specials, but the love of steam was refusing to die. Adverts began to appear in railway magazines asking for help to restore engines that were sitting in scrapyards. And for 71000, this was no exception. Soon over 40 members had come together to create the Duke of Gloucester Steam Locomotive Trust. The engine sat at Woodham Yard, and the group paid £4,950 to get the engine out. It was sent to the Great Central Railway to begin its restoration. But this trust had one unique member, the engine's own creator. Considering its short history, Robert Riddles, who had retired from the railway at this point, came out of retirement as a consultant and was only too happy to offer advice on his engine. The work to restore the engine was going to be more difficult than first thought. Not only did they have to restore the years of weathering that only comes with years of standing in the rain, but faults that the engine had previously had to be addressed. And while there were engineers in the trust, none of them had the experience of dealing with locomotives. Luckily, advice wasn't too far away, and they also included the late Jeff Sands, the former shedmaster of Crewe. It took 12 years to finally get the Duke into some form of steaming. By 1986, the Duke was ready for its first test run. Sadly, Robert Riddles would never see her hit the main line as he passed in 1983. Not only did the engine get restored to near perfect condition, it was made better. Firstly, the chimney was changed for the Clychap exhaust system. Then it was discovered that the dampeners were not true to the drawings, so they were made larger, and other tweaks and changes were performed. What came out was an absolute unit, and everything Robert had hoped for. It is one of the most powerful steam locomotives to ever grace British rails. It was put to the test on the main line and achieved the fastest northbound ascent for any steam engine over the Shap Summit in 1995, outperforming the Duchess of Hamilton and Sir Nigel Gresley, and had an unblemished preserved record with only one failure due to a leaking tube in 2007. In 2012, her boiler ticket expired, and she was badly in need of an overhaul. Luckily, earlier on this year, the work was completed, and she will be out and about pulling passengers as early as next week. The Duke is a real rags to riches engine, and many have speculated that if the previous faults had been rectified, what might have been? It's easy to imagine an army of these wonderful engines, and with its amazing power, not only would it give the standard 7s a run for its money, but many others too, including many diesels that were made to replace it.